ball knocked loose. White dive on it.
This is twice now the Celtics have been first to the floor.
They try to save with Horford. Unbelievable.
Boston first to the floor. So good.
Brown fakes, fires up the three. Bang! Tatum dives on the floor. Everybody dives. Jaylen Brown with the flush. Blocked by Porzingis. He's doing it all. Tatum spinning, driving, laying. Washington drives. Blocked by White. Oh, what a block from Derek White.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, our feet on the ground there in the US, close to the action, Wayne Spoony. Spoony, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good, guys. I'm very jealous you guys are hanging out in person. But yeah, I'm just a mere 600 miles from Boston, so I got my, my finger on the pulse.
A West Virginian correspondent. And joining me live in the Sydney studios, Derek White's mistress, Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how we doing, man?
This is awesome. We were saying in the intro, this is like, I'm way more nervous than I ever would
I know.
be. Looking at my computer screen. Yeah, in real life, look at this, dude. We got graphics behind us, laptops, the JJ Redick show. I guess don't have to watch out because it doesn't exist anymore. But
that's right.
We're coming for all of those live pods. This is cool. Spoony, I guess. We have to do a rock paper scissors shoot to find out if Spoony moves to Sydney or we move to West Virginia.
Yeah. I'll move to Sydney.
Deal.
I mean.
Yeah, it was great to be able to dust off the Vegas studio equipment again. I think you talk about the nerves. In Vegas, at least we were drunk the whole time. This is weird. It's 10:30 in the morning, very sober. It's very, very sobering indeed. Before we get into it, you guys both writing for Celtics blog now. We're about to talk about Al Horford a little bit later. Jake, you got a piece on Al Horford that just came out. Is that right?
Yes, I just unmuted myself on the laptop. So
literally
it's these things here. But yeah, wrote about Al Horford's longevity. And yeah, we got a little glimpse into some of that with Media Day today, but it's just an ode to Al Horford's longevity. And it was really fun to kind of dive into how good he still is, just removing the context of being 38 years old. Mm-hmm. And then also how impressive what he did at 30 years old in the finals, in the playoffs, was historically when you put that into context. So if you haven't read it, don't worry about it. I'm going to basically just ruin the whole thing later on here, and it's going to be great.
Awesome. Can't wait to get into it. Spoony, you got anything that's just come out or coming out soon?
Yeah, well, two things. One, turn Jake up just a little bit.
Okay.
Two, I love that Duncan won the title at 37, Jake, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
That was like beautiful. It's like poetry, man. And yeah, I'm writing about Joe Mazzulla turning the Celtics into executioners, and I'm gonna like try and sprinkle in like a lot of medieval torture stuff. But I don't know if that's gonna fly on Celtics blog, but that's what we're going for.
Hell yeah, nice. Can't wait to see that pride and place on CelticsBlog.com. All right, Media Day has wrapped. The jerseys are looking freshly green. It was rife with inspirational quotes. And how good is it just to have some fresh content to react to, you guys? Why don't we just start with an around the room? Spoony, we'll go to your figurative extension of our room here. Best moments from Media Day.
I think my favorite moment by far was Tatum talking about Joe and him saying like, he's probably the only one that was happy that I didn't play in the Olympics and like I'm getting disrespected and that's exactly what we were saying all summer. It's like the one man who's like pumped about this is Joe Mazzulla because it's just going to make Tatum more hungry. And that was just such a perfectly and my good friend Joe Mazzulla, we're best buddies now.
Close personal friend.
I just thought it was like really awesome, perfectly Joe, and I thought Tatum was so kind of just like, yeah, that was weird, but Joe loves it. It's like that's like every response to something Joe says, like that was weird, but that's Joe.
Yeah, all offseason, we create the fan fiction in our brains. It's like the motivation for Jaylen, the motivation for Tatum. Jaylen's training to fight Batman underwater. We want Tatum to be working on his jump shot. And this is what Media Day is all about, right? We got all of the fan service. And the thing about the Celtics, though, is, and obviously like some of the other teams haven't had their Media Days yet, and I was tempted to tweet, I haven't heard the story about Joel Embiid doing 2-a-days yet and getting up at 6 o'clock, but I guess technically he hasn't had the chance to tell us that yet, so I might have to wait until they actually have their Media Day before I can shit on him. But that's everything you want. It's like Jayson Tatum's been working on his jump shot in multitude of different ways, getting in the gym. I mean, Ben, to quell your anxieties as someone that was getting a bit nervous about Tatum's busy schedule yesterday in the Discord, which I think was a tier 1 anxiety. He's like, man, this guy's just... And he even talked about how he's just used to jet lag now. I think he's just an Iron Man in all phases of life. It doesn't matter. He's got newborn. He's playing 70+ games, 40+ minutes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's getting his two-a-days in. And then Jaylen, I mean, he looks so good. I mean,
no beard.
The beard's gone.
No beard. He said he was working out the hardest he's ever worked out this offseason, which is crazy considering how jacked and lean he came in last year. He's like doubling down on that approach. We saw in the offseason some of the images and videos of him like, emerging from the pool and dunking on the hoop there, just glistening with the water off his body. But yeah, so just going back to the Tatum stuff very quickly.
Let's go back to Jaylen's glistening body, actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
For the next 42 minutes.
Please. Yeah, I'm completely fine with that. Tatum talked about fixing and working with Drew Hanlon to address this hand placement on the ball, getting lower, coming out of his shooting stance, shoulders forward, just like fundamental aspects of becoming a good shooter. And he talked about like quelling my anxiety, and we'll get to his off-season schedule in a little bit. But certainly like him actually taking the time and finding the time rather to address that and make it a priority in the off-season is huge. And he did talk about how that was a factor during the playoffs and how fortunately the team was playing so well that he didn't really need to prioritize that or pay much attention to that because the team just was fucking awesome anyway. But good to know that that's kind of at the epicenter of his mind because it's certainly been keeping me up at night during the offseason. And then, he talked about, and Al Horford talked about him going into the gym, the Outback Center there, 8:30 in the morning, just as Tatum's leaving. It's great to know because we haven't really seen much of this on his like sort of social media campaign in the offseason that he's found the time to get these workouts in. I think I have to get used to the idea. Newsflash. Me and Jayson Tatum are not the same. He is actually capable of squeezing quite a lot into his busy schedule and has a team around him. I'm a very lazy, almost 40-year-old man. We're very different people. Anyway,
I was going to say, I think if you now inject $300 million into your life, it would make a lot of it might lighten the load a little bit of the multiple children and and you'd be able to hop in the hyperbaric time chamber more than you currently are. So I think understanding that's good that it's taken us till now to realize that you are a little bit different.
We kicked around the idea that maybe there's some similarities for a little while, but it didn't work out in my favor. That's okay. I'm
slightly different than the 6'9" first team All NBA guy. It probably is easy to make things work when you have a personal chef, probably like 3 nannies and a driver. So I would like to know how that is someday in my life. But it was great to hear him taking it very seriously because I think there's he could realistically be like, I shot 37% from 3 during the regular season. Like my shots, wasn't going in, but it's a small sample size. I'm not worried about it. Like, I think that's probably how a guy like Joel Embiid would like handle that question. But Tatum is a worker. Like that's the best thing about him. He always is working on his game, him and JB. So I'm not surprised that he's showing up at 6 a.m. and working on his shot, and I'm very happy. But let's hope it works, man. We've seen the Hanlon thing go the other direction before, so it's a little concerning.
What else stood out to you guys from Media Day?
The overall and this has been a trend going all the way back to the Brad Stevens era, and I forget who he told, but when Sam Jam Packard and Jay King were still on Locked On Celtics, and the word Kaizen and becoming Kaizen Warriors became a thing. And Brad Stevens shared that like his favorite book was like Kaizen, which is the growth mindset, the art of the growth mindset. And then the word Kaizen has been tattooed on the metal beams in the weight room ever since they built the Auerbach Center. And Joe has just carried that on even more so now. And then Jaylen and Jayson, like, were they always going to be this way in that they come in and look to get better every year? Or is it the fact that they had Brad Stevens, they were surrounded by Al Horford, and now Joe Mazzulla did that just foster that type of mindset? It's probably a combination of both. Like, they were probably both always going to be great. I think in particular Jaylen, like, he's just like he is Mr. Chip on his shoulder no matter what. And I thought that was something that kind of filtered all the way through from Brad, Jaylen, Jayson, Al, Joe, all through media day, was just like, we're always here to get better. And, even this little clip from Jayson here on how he's getting better and how he's working on his game. Again, this is what you want to hear. This is what gets the juices flowing on media day. Okay, and here.
You haven't seen like the best version of Jayson Tatum.
Oh, y'all heard that?
And you should, right? I'm only 26. I should continue to keep getting better. So I just strive to continue to do that.
We just talked about it. I'm clearly on the decline on my way down. Jayson Tatum very much on the ascent there.
Yeah, 26 years. And we've been saying this the whole time. Like, even when they were lost in the finals against the Warriors, it was like he just finished his age 23 season. He is still so far away from his peak. Even the season he just had, which was his best season as a basketball player, 3-point shot notwithstanding, which we've covered ad nauseum, he had complete control of the offense for the entire playoffs in a way that he just did not have previously. And that's 26 years old. Like, we saw Jaylen have easily his best year as a pro. And again, they're in the early stages of their prime. Like, the best seasons of guys' careers are usually 29, 30, when like the perfect blend of athleticism and IQ and experience comes together now. And Brad Stevens had a comment today as well where he's like, talking about the title defense and what you can expect. And it's like, I can't imagine this season's going to throw us anything we haven't seen before. Like, you can go through the list of shit that these guys have gone through, whether it's the Kyrie season, watching Gordon Hayward's ankle explode 5 seconds into Jayson Tatum's rookie season, their head coach have a sex scandal, losing in 7 games to the Miami Heat after going down 3-0 and coming all the way back. Like, I actually want to pull together all the playoff games these guys have played relative to the top 6 or 7 guys in all the rotations at the top of the league, because these guys have played so many big games, so many playoff games, from Horford for his whole career, Jaylen and Jayson now going into their 8th season together. It's just, they're so experienced, and you wrap all that together. And it's just the perfect place you want to be on media day right now.
Hell yeah. What do you reckon, Spoonie?
On the Tatum stuff, I think real quick, like the Brad Stevens influence on those guys. I think Danny Ainge targets hard workers except for Romeo Langford. So I think the Jays were always going to be some of the hardest working guys in the NBA. But there's a big leap between, hey, this guy's pretty hardworking, to top 1% Kobe Bryant insanity hard worker, which they are. And I think that's probably where Brad got them to. He gave them that little extra push to get them to, like, this is what it takes to win a title, guys. Like, you got to be up at 6 a.m. and then you got to do 2-a-days. We're not going to make you. Like, that is all on you to do as a professional. And those dudes took it to heart. And, like, I think it's so cute just hearing them like like they just like embody everything Brad instilled in them as young players, and like because they've seen results since they were rookies. So it's like, of course you're going to listen to this guy, because when you do what he says, really good things happen, even if Gordon Hayward blows out his ankle, right? Like the Eastern Conference Finals, like Pistons fans would be throwing a damn parade to make the Eastern Conference Finals. That's the floor for the Jays at this point, basically. So, yeah, it's just wonderful to see, and I love how much they just always bring it up every time someone sticks a mic in their face. And it's like, because it is so ingrained, like that's all they have to talk about, because that's all they're doing is working on basketball right now.
We saw it right at the end of the title, right when Tatum came off the court as they're winning the championship at the end of Game 5. He goes over and hugs Joe Mazzulla, and Joe Mazzulla says, I told you. Yeah. And Corrales and him talked about it on the interview, just like, if you stick with the process, if you stick with what I believe is the best way for us to achieve our goals, we're gonna give ourselves the best chance. And like, it wasn't like an I told you so thing. It was just like, I told you, if you believe in me and I believe in you, we're gonna get there. And Brad from the beginning Like, how many times do we hear Brad saying not too high, not too low? And then Tatum became like a Brad Stevens robot in that way. Not too high, not too low.
Hitting singles.
And Joe today had a similar way of phrasing it today. I've got a clip here from Tim Bontemps asked the question here, but it's about Joe, and it's just diving even deeper into the mindset of not being too high or too low.
Did I hear you right that you said you didn't enjoy the offseason?
I mean, I enjoyed some parts of it. I think attachment was something that you have to be aware of, right? Like, I think when one of the challenges of this offseason was detaching from the past and having an understanding of if you're attached to a success or a failure for too long, that can be really dangerous. And the world tries to keep you attached to the past, and the world tries to keep you attached to your latest success or your latest failure, and that's where people get stuck, where they're in, is attachment. And so it was a balance of we can't be attached to this past success. It would be the same as being attached to a past failure. So how can we detach from that with the understanding of taking the things, the DNA of the things that we need to do to try to go after greatness again? And so it's just a battle of, detachment versus attachment. And, I think that's kind of what we're going to have to be working towards throughout the year.
Yeah, it's like you can't live in the Game 7 again in the Miami series where Jaylen has the worst experience of his basketball career and he lets that go and comes back better than ever.
Yeah.
And the same is true with the title. And we're going to see, like, they can say all this stuff. But I mean, I believe him, but I'm obviously going to believe them.
I love the continuation of this, like the evolution of Joe Mazzulla as well, where of course Pokemon style, this is the obvious step up in his mentality and his mindset, because you would think getting to the championship, you're over the hill, you've gotten exactly where you need to go, and it's no, that's just level one of potentially infinite levels, where now he's now we're not defending the title, we're attacking the next one, and they're just cascading the Brad Stevens mindset and aura that you guys just discussed down to the rest of the team. He's the perfect, I don't want to call him the messenger of Brad, because he does a lot more than just carry Brad's message. He takes it on and enhances it, and probably does a better job of articulating it and communicating it to the rest of the team, which you love to see. Speaking of things we love to see, Kristaps Porzingis, Brad Stevens said, doing surprisingly well in his recovery, Spoonie, from this, what they called a rare injury. We've seen some pretty promising content on social media about where he's at with his recovery. I like it to really feed into these things, but not causing me any anxiety in that sense yet. It seems like he's well on his way to a quick recovery. It's really going to be more a matter of when to ramp him up and when to reinsert him, as far as how that conveys to arriving at the playoffs healthy, I suppose.
Yeah, first of all, awesome. That's great to hear. I
Yes.
feel like you never get news like that. It's this is going way better than we expected. But even still, there's just no rush to bring him back. That's why we got Tillman. That's why we kept Cornette. We have a stable of centers we can throw out there and trust to play regular season games. So, bring him back for the playoffs. I mean, that's really the plan, I think. But no, I think it's awesome. Yeah, Brad is pretty close to the vest, I feel with stuff like this. So it must really be going well for him to kind of go out on a limb and say it's surprising how well he's doing.
Yeah, I agree. He didn't have to say anything if he didn't want to, right? He can just be yeah, rehab's going fine or going as expected, and the timeline hasn't changed. And no one would have blinked an eye. But for him to come out and be we're surprised, and KP comes out and says, I think I'm going to be ready to go earlier than the timeline suggests, which players always say that. But, that's what you want to hear. I don't know. What do you think, Ben? Because obviously I feel this is your specialty. If he's ready to come back early, does he come? Do you want him to come back early?
No.
Take
the Al Horford approach. Take the season off. Take a treadmill with you, or an elliptical, or whatever's good for your aging joints. But take some time off. Come back. Fly back into Boston late March. Begin your ramp up then when we need you healthy for the playoffs. I got to give a shout out to Pete as well, who's just dropped a super chat in the chat there. Thanks for the awesome content. Thank you, Pete, and thanks for being part of our Discord community and a long-time viewer of the show. Really appreciate everyone in the chat here watching as we try a new format here, Jake's in Sydney. So we're just trying out the studio revival with Spoonie, the US correspondent there, feet on the ground in the US. But yeah, to get back to your question, Jake, KP I'm all for taking the time with ramping him back up and getting him back on the court. It feels like the subtext of what Brad Stevens was saying today is like they basically feel the same way. And KP as well, he's like, I feel really good, but the medical staff are really got a tight grasp on me and what they're allowing me to do. He talked about only getting to contact drills on the court within the last week or so. So as healthy as he looks, as far as what they're allowing him to do, that seems to be another story. I don't know about you guys, but I'm completely fine with that.
Well, yeah,
Real quick.
Go ahead, Sweeney.
I was going to say, if I give you December 1st as a date, are you going
Too early.
before or after?
Please,
Like,
after.
Yeah, that's what we want, Ben. I know. But do you think he'll be back before or after? Because it was originally end
December
of
1.
December, right?
Okay, interesting. I would go after December 1, but I'm of the opinion like they're not going to bring him back unless he's over 100% healthy. Like with what they did with the calf, like it kind of sounded like he was ready to go prior to that, but they were like, we're just not going to, especially once they went up, it sounds like 3-0 in that Pacers series.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, well, you're not coming back for the finals until the finals because we're going to have another week off, etc. But I mean, and obviously Latvian Pete, thank you. I mean, his ears perked up. We start talking about Latvian Moses here, and his credit card fell out of his pocket, and really appreciate that. The Latvian banks emptied the funds there. We really appreciate that. But yeah, like if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. There he is, the Bear Slayer. Love it. That's an OG. That feels like a relic now. We've done so many shows. KP's absolutely part of the family now, as is Pete. But yeah, you could make the argument, and I hate to look at it this way, but like you bring him back, which means you can get the next injury out of the way, and then he's ready to go for the playoffs. You know.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about this, Spoonie, but I guess another reason for bringing him back sooner is like how long can Al Horford, and we'll get to Al in detail very soon with the deep dive, but like how long can he carry the torch for as the starting center? The sooner you bring back KP, that lightens the load on Al Horford. Maybe that's an incentive to bring him back pre-December 1.
Yeah, that's a great point I hadn't really considered, and you guys know where I stand on Al Horford's minutes. None.
Get him out.
So
KP and Al are not playing until the finals.
Yeah, neither of them. Hillman's good. We'll be fine. No, that's a great point. I think, Jake, you're right. Like, he is not coming back till he's 100% for sure. But with the way Brad's talking, it makes me think he's going to be 100% in like November or something. So I could see him coming back. The prospect of like get the next injury out of the way is terrifying, and I like hate to consider it. But with the way KP's career's gone, I mean, that's kind of real, right? I mean, he's gonna miss games probably multiple times this season.
Yeah, he's an injury risk even when he comes into a season 100 or 110% healthy. So, I say aim for 120% healthy. Yeah. Why not? Right? Try something different.
Let's go crazy.
That's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe he's got to get over. Maybe Latvia's closer to Germany than the US. Maybe he swung by, hit up Kobe Bryant's doctor, and wherever Christian McCaffrey has gone to deal with his Achilles tendonitis. But look,
PRP?
Yeah, get a little PRP injection, PCP mixed in there as well. Why not? Get that ankle feeling good. But I'm also just really confident that he's just going to be awesome when he comes back. And so, I think that he's just one of those guys where that. I mean, we saw it in the finals, game 1, after not playing for how long?
His feet don't really leave the ground when he's like banging deep threes, like multiple large Latvian paces behind the 3-point line. So I look forward to him. I mean, he's probably already doing that now. So he'll come back eventually. Hopefully the medical staff know what they're doing. They seem to. And there is some other injury or surgery news that we can get to as well as we sort of rattle off, I guess, the final notes of Media Day before we take an ad break and come back with a Horford deep dive. A couple of quick things here, and I'll throw to you guys. No Larry for Brad Stevens. He did not get any scheduled time with the Larry O'Brien trophy, which is insane. Like we talked about the culture a second ago. Like he was the beginning of that, the end of the PSKG era. We get Al Horford. We get Brad Stevens on board. He begins this whole movement towards Banner 18. Doesn't get a second with the trophy, which is insane. A couple of other things. Luke Cornett, wrist surgery. Xavier Tillman, we were sort of umming and ahhing during the regular season. Was there a knee thing? He got a scope in July, reportedly, a knee scope, and he's good to go for training camp as well. What other sort of dead notes do you have?
The Tillman thing's really notable to me. Like that was why he fell in the draft. He had some injury stuff at Memphis. He came over and was injured and missed games, and then had a knee scope. Like knee scopes in general, surgeries in general don't necessarily guarantee that everything is now fine forever.
Yeah.
I do think that people are, and we talked about on the Tillman deep dive, are going to be maybe surprised at how much he plays. And I think he'll play less than people think. Like I don't think he's going to be a guy that plays a ton of 30-plus game minutes in the regular season. I just don't think that we're going to see that.
Spoony?
No, definitely not. I mean, it is kind of like good to get an explanation maybe for why he wasn't playing all that much once he was traded for. I think also part of that's he doesn't know the system. But this is entirely on Brad Stevens for not getting the Larry. Joe Mazzulla said in that interview with John Corrales, there was a sign-up sheet. Brad, you just got to sign up, buddy. Wait in line, wait your turn. Yeah. Like, get on there. So I do not feel any pity for Brad Stevens. That's on him entirely.
Oh man, ruthless, Spoony.
But this is the Brad Stevens. This is Brad Stevens though. He's on to the next, man. He's like
He's thinking about the next trophy,
dude. If you're gonna put humility in the, humility is in the dictionary. If you're gonna put someone's picture next to the word humility in the dictionary, it's gonna be Brad Stevens. Like he refuses to take any credit for anything that happened last year, despite being the dude that like formed the two most important players as youth, as NBA players, and then made like 4 of the most impactful trades in the NBA and since he took over. So yeah, I think that's you almost can't picture Brad doing you definitely can't picture Brad doing what Joe Mazzulla did by walking around Boston with the trophy in restaurants, hanging out with firefighters, like just doing that. And it's just a funny arc. Like Brad is definitely in the right spot as far as being like forward facing. Like Joe, I'm not sure if he likes doing the media, but he's coming to his own as that character and that coach. And I mean, he's the quotes every single time he gets up there. He's the right guy to be the coach, and Brad's the right guy to be the puppet master behind the scenes. Which, yeah.
Everything in its right place, as Radiohead once said. Spoony, any other thoughts or comments from Media Day?
No, I don't think so. I think the vibes are high. Like everybody seems like extremely ready to get back on the court, which is what you want to see. Like, let's do it, boys. Let's go crush it for Banner 19, dude. And like that's what you expect when you're the reigning champs. Like the vibes are going to be high, but these dudes also seem incredibly focused on the goal, just the way they're talking about it. So all great things. Can't wait for the season to start.
Yeah, and is there any richer color of green than the Celtics jerseys at Media Day? I don't know who's working the laundry room there at Outback Center, but man, that just popped off the screen. You love to see it. It's the same every year. Like I remember the contrast, Isaiah Thomas's Celtics green jersey, the Adidas ones, and the white headband as well. Just crisp. You love to see it. If I'm talking about colors, we've run out of stuff to talk about. There really is so much content to come out of Media Day, and obviously we've run out of time. We've got to get to Al Horford, so we can't talk about it all, but perhaps we'll circle back on the next show. But in the meantime, if you're listening now, let us know in the chat your favorite moments from Celtics Media Day. If you're watching later, please let us know in the comments or the Spotify comments, which you can now leave your favorite moment from Celtics Media Day. When we come back, the Al Horford deep dive. But first, here's a quick word from our friends over at Factor Meals.
So about a year ago, a big cold box was delivered to my front door. It turns out my wife had decided to order Factor. It was one of the best decisions she's made. The first meal I had was like this chili mac and cheese, and I've been hooked ever since. It's absolutely delicious. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, which is not my selection, but some people do enjoy that, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/floor. FLOOR50 and use code FLOOR50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code FLOOR50, FLOOR50 at factormeals.com/FLOOR50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
All right. It's time. The Al Horford deep dive.
Oh, yes.
We've been excited about a few. I'm not sure we'll ever be as excited as we were about this Sam Hauser deep dive. But Al Horford coming into his age 38 season, touched on it at the top, wrote about Al Horford, the ageless wonder. And I think this, like, you know, the top of the story, I was like, everybody wanted the Celtics to lose. Mm-hmm. Everybody wanted the Mavs to upset the Celtics. But when the Celtics did win, it did feel like that was the one thing that people that did hate the Celtics could at least be like hold on to. Like, it's hard to hate Al Horford. He's just been in the NBA for so long. He's just been like a consummate pro the entire time.
Sure.
But I said near unanimous happiness for Al Horford because Sixers fans, I think, were, you know, more upset than anybody in the world to see Al Horford lift Larry O'Brien after what he did to them. But I think this video right here is important to show, but just because of how we feel about Al Horford and how Al Horford also feels about Boston.
Oh, my man, the champ. That's it.
Nobody deserved it more than Al.
Al's an unbelievable teammate, unbelievable person.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, champ.
Nobody doing more to you, baby. Yeah, OG.
Yes, sir.
You can win championships in many places, but there's nothing like winning in Boston. And nothing like winning as a Celtic.
I mean, that's sploosh material.
Yes.
That's
sploosh.
That's Al Horford juice has been spilled all over
Yes.
Ben's house now.
T-shirts available in the merch store below.
But yeah, so off the top, to contextualize Al in his age. So there are 6 players in NBA history that have made the NBA Finals at age 37 or older while playing at least 30 minutes. So that's like players that are actually playing real roles on teams, 30 minutes a game. Like that's, I mean, Al Horford saved us again. We talked about Chris Stapps not being there, but he played 30 minutes a night in the playoffs. And the only other players to do that, Tim Duncan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar twice, Jason Kidd, Karl Malone, and Al Horford. Wow. If I narrow that down to who won the title, I can kick Karl Malone out of there, which is nice to do because any chance to kick Karl Malone out, you should take it. And while I was kind of researching how good Al Horford was, you know, outside of being 38 years old, Alex Hoops, I posted it on Twitter, but he did like a stretch and protect. The big men in the NBA that can stretch the floor and protect the rim because Pelicans fans are like, why have we not got one of those players? Because they don't really exist. So of players that have shot at least 3.5 threes per game and have a block percentage of 3% or more, there are 9 players. Joel Embiid, Victor Wembanyama, Jaren Jackson Jr., Kristaps Porzingis, Chet Holmgren, Brook Lopez, Naz Reid, Miles Turner, and Al Horford. That's the entire list of those players. And the Celtics have 2 of them, which is insane to begin with. The insane versatility defensively that gives you and being able to stretch the floor, obviously. But then I went one step further and I was like, can I have a look at, of the stretch and protect the rim guys, which of these guys are the best at defending in isolation as well? And so you look at, I've got the stats here as well. So Horford gave up 0.91 points per possession defending in isolation last season. And if you're watching on YouTube, I've got the list of guys here. KP was actually the most efficient there, giving up only 0.812. But if you look at the possessions defended, Al Horford has like double the possessions defended most of these guys, and the only one that's even close is Miles Turner at 123 compared to Horford's 156 isolations defended, and Miles Turner's giving up 1.057. Like this is just in a vacuum one of the best big men in the NBA.
Yeah,
like whichever way you slice it.
This tracks with the synergy stuff as well. Defensively, he's 65th percentile league-wide. So factoring in all positions, including all the guards and wings who would be much better defensively in this capacity. 65th percentile league-wide as a pick-and-roll ball handler defender, as in he switches on to the ball handler, to the Trae Youngs, to the Donovan Mitchells of the world, and holds up 0.86 points per possession as a 38-year-old center in the league, defending in isolation, or in this case, defending the pick-and-roll ball handler. That is fucking crazy.
Yeah. So real quick on his rim protection, and I think this is Al's superpower, is that he can kind of turn it on and off now that he's old, which is why he's so good in the playoffs. So within 6 feet, players actually shot better than their average against Al during the regular season. In the playoffs, their field goal percentage dropped by 11.2% when defended by Al within 6 feet of the basket. That is fifth out of players who defended at least 75 attempts around the rim in the playoffs. So he basically went from like old man, like I'll just kind of hold my hands up and I'm not really going to affect shots around the rim during the regular season, to an elite rim protector. So it's still in there. And that's why he is so impactful even in the playoffs, despite, his age. And then the fact that you can just trust him to do a good job on Luka Doncic on a switch is like, you can't really overstate how valuable that is for a defense. And especially when that defense also includes 4 of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, it just creates you're just like the bully, man. It's like you don't let anyone crack the shell and you never get into rotation, and then offenses just plummet because there's nothing you can do. Your best option is like a step back 3. And maybe you go Donovan Mitchell on those for one game, but you're not going to win a series like that. And Al is like the key to us being able to play like that.
And it's crazy. Like, this is how good he is now. And there was Z Gamer on Twitter was like, he has slowed down, and he has slowed down. Like that is true. And so you look at the numbers, like the 2022 playoffs when the Celtics had that historic defense, he was giving up 0.691 points per isolation.
Which is nuts.
So that's as good as it gets, right? And in this playoffs, he was at 0.822. Yes. And so that's a drop there. But so Al Horford has slid and is slower relative to Al Horford 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But relative to the rest of the big men in the NBA, he is still as good as it gets. Like, if you want to go switch bigs in the NBA, it's like Bam and Anthony Davis are like some of like the only guys that are like ahead of him. Even he was ahead of Wembanyama last year. So he was just so good. And then we try and project forward here, right? So it's like, okay, how much more... Like, how much more can we freaking ask of Al Horford, man? Like, he's just been saving us. He's been so good. Like, it's so good that we got the title for so many reasons, but like Al Horford was so good in the playoffs in the 2022 run. Like, he shot like 40+%. I think he shot like over 60% from 3 in the finals. Like he was there, and people remember like Steph Curry cooking the drop coverage, but that was not the problem. That was not the reason they lost that finals. It's because they couldn't score. The defense was fine. And Horford was fantastic in that finals. And so it kind of felt like the Jays and the team around him kind of let Horford down, because that's who we know needed to get a ring, because his time is limited. Is the time limited? Because like he said at media day, like, retiring was never a consideration. I didn't think it was a consideration.
He looked great.
He looked incredible, as we've just outlined. He's been one of the best big men in the NBA, regardless of age. And so Tim Duncan has come up a lot on this podcast lately, and again with Al Horford, which is credit to Tim Duncan, credit to Al Horford. But looking at Tim Duncan, so as you said earlier, Spoonie, he won the title when he was in his age 37 season as well. He played 2 more seasons after that. In his age 38 season, he played 77 regular season games while playing like 28 minutes a night. That year, the Spurs won 55 games and had the 3rd best net rating in the league. And in Duncan's age 39 season, he played 61 games at 25 minutes a night. He was 6th on the team in minutes, which is kind of exactly where they have Horford right now. Mm-hmm. The Spurs won 67 games and had the league's best net rating, ahead of the 73 win Warriors. So wow. And you think about the type of player that Tim Duncan was. Like, he was never a guy that relied on explosive athleticism, to be dominant. He relied on just IQ, instincts, and skill. And then something that Tim Duncan didn't have going for him that Al Horford does is the 3-point shooting, which we haven't even talked about. Like, go ahead.
Well, I think Timmy would have nailed the 3-point shot if it was sort of demanded of him in that era of basketball. And that, continuing with the similarities between Tim Duncan and Al Horford, it's as they age and they lose a step relative to their 5 to 10 year ago self, their improvement comes with its relation to the rest of the team. So Al Horford's lost a step relative to himself 5 years ago, relative to the ascension of the Jays and Derek White and Drew Holiday. It matters less. It kind of fits together like a beautiful puzzle piece. He loses a step just as we actually require less of him. And I think that's really important to consider with a player like Al Horford as he ages. And the things that he can continue to give our offense and defense is spacing, 3-point shooting. We talked about his rim protection as well. He gives just enough in those areas of importance for a person at that position that the fact that he moves slightly less quickly laterally, it doesn't actually matter. It's almost a moot point.
Yeah, well, and he's such a good passer too. He reads the game really well. He's always moving. He's always setting screens. He's always when he's weak side, he will just get it upon himself to set a pin down for Jaylen Brown. That's not in the playbook. That's just Al Horford knowing how to play offense. Even on his post ups, we generated threes on 30% of Al's post ups. Tatum was 17% and KP was 15%. Part of KP's is because he always fucking scored, but yes. Al is generating good threes out of his own post ups. And in the playoffs, we had a 65% assist percentage with him on the court and a 53% with him off the court. So he is just such a ball mover, such a smart player. He almost has evolved into where Derek White was, because White has become so good. I don't want to use that comparison really, but what we thought we were getting with Derek White, maybe make some open threes and move the ball and play really smart. Al is the big man version of that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just, I'm so glad you brought up the passing. He's perfect. This fucking guy is so good at basketball, dude, and has been doing it for so long for this team, man. The 2007 draft, it was Odin, Durant, and then Al Horford. Mm-hmm. And it's just he's now going to, I think, going to end up easily making the Hall of Fame with the title. He's going to have another deep playoff run this year. And the 3-point shooting, so even taking into consideration, he had that down 3-point shooting year last year in the playoffs, not in the regular season. He was 44% in the regular season last year. So last 2 seasons, combining both playoffs and regular season, he's shooting 40.9% from 3. The 2 best year stretch of his entire career. So while the other stuff has started to slip, his 3-point shooting has gone to a level that it was not previously at. Not just the accuracy, but the willingness, which is almost more important. It's the willingness to fire off, which we saw twice in the playoffs, 10+ threes, 7 for 12, 6 for 13. I'm maybe getting those numbers reversed, but multiple games where he goes nuclear from the 3-point line on 10+ attempts. Mm-hmm. It's just not something that he was even willing to do before he came back to Boston after becoming an insurgent at the Philadelphia 76ers organization. It's just this guy is going to be able to play for as long as he wants, really. Mm-hmm. The gradual decline, if he's giving up, he can't perfectly extrapolate the numbers, but if it's 0.69 and now it's 8.2 or 0.82, 2 years later, is it just going to be 0.99 in 2 years from now while he's still an elite shooter and doing all these other things? That still makes him, again, one of the best big men in the league 2 years from now. So it's just going to be, does he want to, I think. And it's right now, clearly he wants to be there. He's so excited. He's extra motivated because of the shit that the Jays have been giving over the summer. It's do we get Al Horford on a fucking veterans minimum the following year? And that's literally going to be the best contract in the NBA by none.
Yeah, it's already pretty good at 10 mil per. Given what he gives to this team, we've just talked all about it. Despite his age, I guess that's maybe a good question. Is he's going to be the starting center for the Celtics for the foreseeable short-term future. Where does Al Horford rank among starting centers in the league? I can throw a few names at you if you like. Obviously, I'm scrolling through a list here at Hoops Hype. It's actually ranking the best starting centers of the league. And I'm scrolling a little bit because it's obviously Jokic and Anthony Davis and Wemby and things like that. But what about
Sabonis? I just saw Al Horford's better than Sabonis.
Yeah, Sabonis.
Sorry,
Rudy Gobert.
Sorry,
Alperen Şengün.
I'm sorry. And Sabonis, can't play defense in the playoffs. You're telling me you're trying to win an NBA championship and you don't have a better chance to do it with Al Horford as your starting center than Sabonis? It's not even a fucking question.
Miles Turner?
I think that's the question is like, are we evaluating who I'd rather have in the playoffs or
Playoffs.
who like is, okay. So then, he's definitely better than Sabonis. I've been a long time Sabonis hater. Miles Turner's a tough one because he's one of those guys that like does what Al does kind of, but he doesn't have the isolation defending. He can't switch. And there's just something about his offensive game. I feel like he doesn't move the ball. His three takes for fucking ever to shoot. So it's like not super punishing against the defense. Like you can kind of take it away. And then it's like, what's next? Miles Turner's putting it on the floor. All right, man. Like we can live with that. So I think I'm taking Al over Miles Turner.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
I think modestly, you'd say he ranks like 15th, like middle of the pack, modestly, like, among starting centers in the NBA.
That sounds I hate Al Horford to me.
Yeah. Like, again, because like I've just this article, I got to discredit Hoops Hype here. They've got like people above Al Horford. They've got Mark Williams. They've got Bobby Portis. Jonas Valanciunas. Yusuf Nurkic.
Oh my God.
Daniel Gafford. It's crazy. I mean, they may just not be considering him as a starting center, but suffice to say, such a valuable asset at $10 million per coming off the bench, ready and willing to step into that starting spot. Very playoff compatible. Shot almost 43% from three last year. And Spoonie, you talked about the post-ups. We don't ask this of him very often anymore, but he has like dad strength in the post. And a recent example is he did this to Derek Lively in the playoffs where he only got to the free throw line. This clip's coming up in a second where like he just completely bodied him. The youthful exuberance of Derek Lively clearly became too annoying for Al Horford, and he was just like, fuck you, little man. I'm just going to back you down and get to the line, which is exactly what he did. And we're seeing a few examples of this now. If you're watching live on YouTube, he can put his back to the basket and back guys down and get easy looks. And then Spoonie, you talked about the passing out of those positions as well. He just so versatile. Here's this Derek Lively play I was talking about. Just bited him. Big dad strength. But maybe the more interesting conversation is like, what are his weaknesses? Because similar to the Hauser deep dive, and really quite a lot of the deep dives we've done so far, we really go all in on the strengths because, you know, Brad Stevens has constructed an awesome team that have so many strengths relative to their roles. What are the weaknesses about Al Horford that we need to be concerned about?
He's 37. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I was going to say, dude.
I think he doesn't really put the ball on the floor anymore. He has like one of the lowest drive rates of like any player in the NBA. And part of why, well, rather, he also never gets to the line and anymore. Like at one point he had shot like 10 free throws in like 30 games or something like that. So, but we don't really need him to do that. So it's like the way Joe has him play magnifies his strengths and basically eliminates his weaknesses mattering. But those are really the only two things. It's like, because even when he does decide to drive, it's pretty effective. And like, he's a really good passer out of it. So it's not even that it's like a weakness. He just doesn't do it that much anymore because he doesn't need to. So I don't fucking know.
First possession of the finals was a drive from the corner and a dunk. Like he's got it in the bag.
Yeah, like if the context is Al Horford has to play the Domantas Sabonis role in Sacramento, then they might not make it as far, or like might not win as many games in the regular season. But then I say that though, like they've had so many defensive issues for years that he would help clean so much of that up, and they're still going to have a good offense because he helps you stretch the floor in a way that Sabonis doesn't. It maybe is like if he's playing that role, then when you get to the playoffs, he's not able to play as well as he did in the most recent playoffs because he only played 26 minutes a night last season. So
that was important.
And I think that's probably the answer to what you said, Spoonie. It's like he's 38 now, and we can't ask him to play 30 minutes a night for 65 plus games in the regular season and then expect him to play 30 plus minutes a night as the starting center on a championship team. That's his weakness, is that he's 38, but that's also like the most astounding thing about how good he is now.
Yeah. And like as a continuation of that, like I wouldn't call him a dynamic cutter or like off-ball mover or anything like that. So like, you know, we're forced to break down the weaknesses of Al Horford's game. So my hands are tied here. But I suppose limited in that sense as far as how he can stretch and keep a defense guessing about, you know, where he's going to be on the court. He's likely going to be waiting beyond the three-point line, typically in the corner, or he's going to be posting up. And that's kind of it. So I don't know if you'd call that a weakness, more of a limitation.
Yeah, it's definitely a limitation, but it's also like, man, there's not a ton of big men who are like dynamic cutters, right? I mean, some guys are, but I'm like trying to rack. I'm trying to like rack my brain for something he's bad defensively at, and even when he's like responsible for the corner shooter, he does a really good job at like controlled closeouts, and like if the guy tries to put it on the floor, he corrals the ball handler. He's like doesn't let you drive his closeout, and he contests threes. It's like that is so important because Tatum's guarding the center, so Al needs to be able to do that well, and he does it really friggin' well. Like I can't even really remember a time where he got like, there's a couple times where he got dusted off a closeout, but like that is so rare for a big man to have that ability on the defensive end. So weaknesses on the defensive end, I cannot think of one.
I remember there was one play where Kyrie kind of got him in a closeout situation and then dribble moved him and got to the rim. And Horford was like, that's on me. But I just remember thinking, being like, that just does not happen.
Right.
Yeah, that's on me as well. I got cooked by the world's best ball handler.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
It's like
that was like the
series.
one time all season.
Dude,
all series.
all series. And it's like coming into the series, Dallas Mavericks fans are probably thinking like, oh, if they switch everything, we'll get Kyrie onto Horford. That'll be great. It's like, no, it's not great. And it's just like, people have watched that all season, all playoffs, and it does feel like the takeaway sometimes is like, oh, he started to show some signs of decline, like people going at him, which we talked about. The one thing that people remember is like that one game that Donovan Mitchell went 7 for 10 from 3. And it's like, he would have done that against every big man in the league.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You can't guard the Donovan Mitchell step back 3 from 30 feet. If they go in, they go in. So we're back to talking about the strengths and not the weaknesses.
I know, it's tough.
But you know what, dude? This team just won 64 games, went 16-3 in the playoffs, and had one of the best net ratings of all time. So shocking. There's not a ton of weaknesses to talk about relative to the expectations and context of these guys' roles.
Well, look, we'll come back in a second. We'll add the finishing touches to our Al Horford deep dive. But first, here's a quick word from our friends over at Game Time.
Alrighty, West Virginia University football just lost an absolute heartbreaker to our biggest rival, University of Pittsburgh, on this last Saturday. That just means WVU's primed to make a comeback this season. I'll be using Game Time to go to the next WVU game and watch them make their way to the Big 12 title, hopefully. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time's not just great for sports. I was looking at tickets for one of my favorite bands, Lake Street Dive, who's playing in Pittsburgh in October. Super easy, jumped on Game Time, typed in the band name, found the show. They had a super deal on floor tickets that actually made them cheaper than general admission. One of my favorite features too is the all-in pricing that you can toggle on, which shows you the full price of the ticket before you go to checkout. No surprise fees at checkout. And definitely check out those Game Time picks. They curate the events to make it easier for you to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Woo!
The one strength that we didn't talk about, but is a good transition to our next topic here. Durability. He just doesn't get injured and is, knocking on wood. I was going to say, you can actually see us knocking on the wood for once, which is cool.
Technology.
Man, and going back to the Celtics being the best health bet out of all the contenders, Al Horford is like at the top of the list there. And I mean, did you watch the Jaylen thing where he was like, I played 70 plus games, no injuries. I was like, all I could think about was Ben talking about, don't say those things out loud.
Shut up,
man.
Dude.
But I mean, like all these guys are durable, and that's like, obviously anything can happen, but there's, they're obviously doing as much as they can to stay healthy. And we're not going to run the Schadenfreude video here because we don't celebrate injuries on the podcast, but like we did get news yesterday that Mitchell Robinson is going to be out until it sounds like January, which we knew that maybe he had been injured and maybe not be ready for the start of the season, but to not be ready to have essentially the same timeline as Kristaps Porzingis, but with a less optimistic outlook right now. is objectively good for the Celtics, like it was objectively good for the Dallas Mavericks when Kristaps Porzingis hurt himself in the finals. Like these are just things that are true. We're not, obviously running the Schadenfreude report. It's just a big deal, and it's something that we talked about on the Knicks episode extensively with DJ Ace. It was like, you lost Hartenstein, who was obviously maybe better than Mitchell Robinson, but Mitchell Robinson is on the fucking Rob Williams health career arc and
doom spiral.
And this is a nightmare for them. Like they are now starting Jericho Sims and Precious Achiuwa on opening night, which again is objectively good for the Celtics.
They've got no depth.
Yeah, fucking Doom Spiral is a badass band name, dude. It probably is a band. But yeah, like, dude, this is a friggin' disaster for the Knicks. Like, Julius Randle is going to be their starting center, and I do not believe it. DJ was very confident about Julius Randle being able to, like, play a lot of center. I feel like it's never worked in his entire career. Like, the offense will probably be good, but the defense is going to be terrifyingly bad. You're, like, undermining having Miles Bridges, or Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby by having a dude that doesn't protect the rim and can get roasted in on switches. It's like, what is the point of that? So it's really bad for them. I hope Mitchell Robinson gets healthy, but like, yeah, dude, you guys are right, man. Like at some point, I feel like the injuries pile on, especially with an athletic. This dude relies like solely on his athleticism to play NBA basketball. It's like, this could be like really, really bad for them.
It's the antithesis of what we've just talked about with the Al Horford situation. It's entirely non-complementary of the skill set of the rest of the roster. Unfortunately for the Knicks, great for us as much as we want to, again, not do the Schadenfreude report, walk that line of it's news. We've got to talk about it. And obviously, like you said, it's objectively good for us. But, Isaiah Hartenstein, long way away there in Oklahoma City, unfortunately for the Knicks.
Yeah, man. Like what other, because you think about that's was almost their answer, but with Mitchell Robinson even still on the team, was like, okay, we're going to go OG Anunoby at the 4/5 with Randall. And I forget if I was talking about it in the Discord or talked about it on the show here, but OG Anunoby's a 4.3 rebounds per game career
Discord
guy, 29 minutes per game for his career, 4.3 rebounds. The reason the Celtics are able to kind of survive with Al Horford, that's a weakness, rebounding for Al Horford. There we go. We got one. And
I want to look it up.
And the reason that that's not a problem is because of Jayson Tatum. And Julius Randle's a good rebounder for his position and size, but if he's your starting center, then he's not a good rebounder for a center. He's just like maybe a below average rebounder for a starting 5 in the NBA. Whereas OG Anunoby, 4.3 rebounds per game at 29 minutes per game is like Tatum's doubling that up, dude. That's really bad. And like, there's Knicks' superpower was rebounding. They were top 5. They were number 1 in rebounding percentage. I'm pretty sure last year. I know they were number 1 in offensive rebounding percentage. That's just gone then, and that's a massive margin for them. And if they're not getting that, that just. I didn't consider them as like a legit threat anyway, but like now it's really hard to imagine. Brian Barrett on the Off the Pike pod read out the on-offs with Mitchell Robinson, and it's really bad without either Hartenstein and Robinson on the court because you're relying on either Randall, Jericho Sims, or Precious Achiuwa, and they're not good.
Is it safe to say even the most biased Knicks fans would immediately trade Mitchell Robinson for Al Horford straight up, like today, even though Al Horford could retire a year from now?
I think there would be Knicks fans that wouldn't do that trade because they're dumb and they don't understand how good Al Horford is. That would be a disaster trade for the Celtics.
Yeah, 26 years old, but he's cooked, it seems. Sorry, Spinny.
No, it's all good, man. Yeah, I just looked up the defensive rebounding percentage for Julius Randle and Jayson Tatum, and Randle is 1% better, and I think it's important to note he is going to be playing center, not power forward. So, like, that's a problem when your best rebounder is rebounding at the rate our 4, sometimes 3 does. So, I just do not. And then there's like the OG Anunoby at center stuff, and like that, then that compounds the rebounding issues like tenfold. So I don't know what the hell they're gonna do. They must really, really believe in Jericho Sims, and I cannot say I agree with them.
I did see Josh Hart tweet that I'm a 1 through 5, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, he did say that.
Swiss Army knife.
And I get where he's coming from because he is an outlandish rebounder for his size and position. Yeah. But one, you're not a one. Good luck with Josh Hart as a one. And again, you're a great rebounder for your size and position. You're not, I don't think, solving the problems of a team that doesn't have a center. But like that's like you put Josh Hart in to try and quell those concerns, but then you're leaving either OG or Randall on the bench, I guess. And it's like as good as it's back to it. Is Hart a better rebounder than Randall? Like maybe, but again, he's not a good rebounder for a 5.
Sure. He is 98th percentile in defensive field goal rebounding, 20.4% defensive rebounding rate per cleaning the glass. So the reason I brought that up is because I wanted to validate the Al Horford is a bad rebounder take. And what's his rebounding percentage defensively? 17.8%, 56th percentile. Not bad for an old fella who can't get his feet off the ground. Also means you can't get your feet off the ground. We talked about this earlier. Like you will never bite on pump fakes as well. So you kind of take the good with the bad there.
Is that playoffs and regular season?
This is regular season only.
I don't know. If you can get IT on just the playoff numbers,
I'll submit a ticket.
That would be interesting just because I think that's what we were talking about. Like he just, he's got the Ferrari in the garage for most of the season.
Anything else on Horford? I'm conscious of time here. We're close to running over. Any other sort of finishing touches, little stats, tidbits in your run sheets there that you've been hanging on to?
Oh, Al Horford's rebounding jumps up defensive rebounding jumps up 3 percentage points in the playoffs.
In the playoffs? Hell yeah.
Yeah. So it's he's a legend, man. He just cranks it up.
He's flawless. No weaknesses.
There we go. It's because they were elite at defensive rebounding in the playoffs as well, which is, I always thought about like the Knicks, like they destroyed the Sixers and the Pacers on the offensive boards, but I was like, both of those teams were like 24th or below in the NBA in defensive rebounding, so of course it looked bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and on Josh Hart being an excellent rebounder, it's like he's playing next to Isaiah Hartenstein, who like 3 people have to box out, and then Hart can come flying in off the wing and grab and really leap and grab the rebounds. Like if they don't have a center out there who's occupying box outs, that's going to be a lot more difficult for him to do. So we shall see with the Knicks, but I don't really have anything else.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely going to be empty the notebook on media day stuff that we missed for later in the week or for whatever. Like I got a Baylor Scheinman photo here and a PP joke that I need to make, so we can save that for later on in the week for sure.
Love it. Love to see it. And look, game 1, regular season, Knicks, Celtics, both teams going to be playing with one hand behind their back, I guess. No KP for us, no Mitchell Robinson for them. But of course, we've got the ageless wonder, the flawless man himself, Al Horford. So thanks for joining us for this Al Horford deep dive. We'll probably clip the deep dive separately and put it out as its own video as well. Give it its own glorious thumbnail with Al Horford's eyelashes featuring prominently. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celts.